We're looking for a female missing person who's been missing for about 11 days. Okay. We've got pictures on CCTV with someone that matches your description with her, so we just want to get some details from her.
11 days?
She's been missing for 11 days, so obviously we need to find her. Okay. And because you look like the person we've seen on CCTV, we just want to get some details off you.
I'll probably chop all my hair off.
What's the name of her?
Julia Rawson.
Who?
Yo, this is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. This story comes from the West Midlands. Julia Rawson went missing in May of last year, and it took nearly a month before 2 people were charged with her murder, in a very rare occasion where they did not find her body first. This story was a massive mystery, and the papers followed the police as they searched canals in the local area to try to find the remains of Julia Rawson. And in breaking news that occurred yesterday, Nathan Maynard Ellis and David Lacey, his boyfriend, were found guilty of the murder of Julia Rawson in Dudley. And she'd spent the day out with friends before ending up in the Bottle and Cork pub in Dudley later on in the evening on Saturday the 11th of May. Police released video footage that shows her in the bar drinking alcohol and talking to another man. Before Maynard Ellis steps into the bar, her attention turns to him. Shortly after that, they leave the bar together and she's never seen again. Prosecutors alleged the killing was a culmination of years of pent-up fantasy and desire on the part of Maynard Ellis, who had an obsession with horror movies and also serial killers, and he went to film school and he'd made horror movies. Maynard Ellis and his boyfriend, 25-year-old David Lacey, were both convicted of her murder, and they dumped her body in 4 different locations. Both defendants also admitted perverting the course of justice and concealing a body after Julia's body was chopped into 11 pieces. The meeting of Julia and Nathan Maynard was purely by chance. They didn't know each other before then, and they had no mutual friends. They struck up the conversation and left in a taxi to go home to Maynard Ellis' house in Mission Drive in Dudley Port. Sentencing will take place on the 27th of November this year, and Julia's family have spoken out and said she was an easygoing and quick to make friends with anyone she met. She was a talented artist and also a musician, and her drawings were shown at local art shows. Her death has had a devastating impact on us, and the mutilation of her body in such a callous way has shattered us. We can only pray that Julie knew nothing of these abhorrent acts. We are a very close family and we have supported each other through this harrowing ordeal, but it has deeply affected us and we still remain troubled. Detective Inspector Jim Colclough from the homicide team said all murders are tragic, but Julia's death and the way she was treated after it was despicable. At this time she was found, not much was known about the circumstances of her death. We created the video to show what we faced when we began to try to find her and highlight some of the work we carried out to provide both dignity and justice for Julia and her family. Many of the details of the case have come out during the trial, and we know investigations like this are of great interest to the public. We have given a detailed account of how we was able to find her killers and also her body so we could bury her. David Lacey and Maynard were originally considered to be witnesses. Lacey gave an alibi for his boyfriend's whereabouts as the investigation went on and his involvement became apparent. Both were arrested on suspicion of murder after a search of Maynard Ellis' house, and they were then charged. There was never an explanation given to why Julia Rawson was killed.
You know, saying that he didn't think it was him in the imagery. If he would been responsible for anything like that, then, you know, he would have taken off and he would have maybe changed his appearance. But officers, having again reviewed that CCTV, looking at the man standing in front of them, were confident enough and certainly had enough suspicion at that time to think that it was Nathan that was the man in the shot, and he was arrested at that point on suspicion of the kidnap of Julia.
The detective in charge of the case during the trial said Nathan Maynard Ellis only gave evidence and his co-defendant and boyfriend, David Lacey, refrained from taking the stand. And the prosecution's main theory was that it was a build-up of fantasy over many years. They said their home was a flat of horrors. Officers were confronted with piles of books on serial killers, true crime and cannibalism. There was Chucky dolls, gruesome doll heads, disturbing latex masks, tools and stuffed creatures on the wall. Coventry Crown Court heard that Maynard Ellis had suffered from mental health problems and harboured dark thoughts that he focused mainly on the sexual assault of women and their violent killing. The jury also heard that Sadistic Maynard had written diary entries and stories about his sexual fantasies and collected newspaper clippings and books about serial killers. In the film, Detective Jim Coffclough explained that they were faced with a mammoth task to search for Julia's body. Just outside his flat in Dudley Port, there was a disused railway line, a canal, homes, woodland, fields and tunnels. They had to go through CCTV and able to track the killers as they walked along the canal path carrying bags. Police discovered Maynard Ellis and David Leasley had been burning items of Julia's clothing in a bin in the back garden of Maynard's mother's house on May the 12th. Police also released the moment that they arrested serial killer obsessed Maynard Ellis, who is 30 years old, for the murder of Julia Rawson. The CCTV showed the moment that he walked into the pub gripping a plastic bag. And they also seen on CCTV that he'd shown her his tattoos as well. Very distinctive tattoos when they'd seen him speaking to her in the pub. A community support officer involved in the missing person inquiry saw the images and identified Maynard Ellis when he was spotted by a security officer out shopping on the same day. He said that it wasn't him when he was asked by officers if he'd seen her. They say Julia's body was dismembered and wrapped tightly in plastic and disposed of in bags placed 20 metres apart in a field. Her body parts were well preserved and they did not attract flies or give off any scent. Maynard Ellis told the police that he'd gone out by chance to meet his father, which he often did, generally on a Sunday. He described getting on the bus and walking into Dudley to see if his dad was out having a drink. They also reported that they found knives, saws, axes and bladed articles in his flat as well. Kareem Khalil for the prosecution said the sadistic killers did not panic after the killing. They even ordered new carpet and underlay from Carpetright. They were also said to have continued about their daily lives, with David even attending work at the local co-op. Despite the pair denying the murder, they were both convicted on November the 9th. They now face the prospect of life behind bars. Maynard Ellis was also found guilty of 4 counts of rape and 1 count of attempted rape and making threats to kill in a different allegation by a woman after his arrest. That I think is very important because it goes to show how this had built up. He'd already attacked a woman and what they claim was 4 counts of rape. He also threatened to kill her by the canal where he'd also then went on to dispose of some of her body parts. The court heard that Julia was a lesbian, but when she was drunk, she sometimes flirted with men. She worked in a warehouse and she must have known very soon on, entering Maynard Ellis's house that he shared with his boyfriend, that he was not quite right. He said the tiny flat was crammed with stuffed creatures, snakes in tanks, and gory faces from characters from horror films. They also found pornographic material about necrophilia as well. In particular, a man having sex with a female corpse. A month-long trial it took to find out all the details of Julia Rawson's murder. The 11 pieces of her body were dumped in various different places, which included a canal towpath that the pair were also seen on CCTV. They burned their clothes, ripped up the carpet, and showed no signs of what they had done. They had over 2 weeks to get rid of all the evidence, the police said, before they knew that anything had happened. There was even filmed on CCTV dumping the sofa that must have been involved in the death. And hours after he had brutally murdered and dismembered Julia Rawson, Maynard Ellis was even seen out drinking alcohol in the pub, as he had done so many times before. This is a sad story and I send my condolences to the family and friends of Julia Rawson. And even though we try to find answers to some of the stories that we cover, sometimes the answers do not justify or even sometimes explain why things happened. So I really appreciate you joining me for this story. I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Peace.
I thought it was really important to come down to the scene to see the flat where they lived and the area where the block was situated. So it led me down to the canal and to this wooded area just to the right. I came down here to meet a specialist search team and took a walk along the canal. The team had already started some line searching through the wooded area to see if there was anything of interest.
When I was asked to lead on the search for Julia, and I stood at the location she was last seen, which was Mission Drive, Tipton, Within 10 metres of the door of the premises she was in, I had a canal, I had woodland, I had a disused rail line, I had tunnels, I had a large coal deposit area, I had a resident.